me beyond belief. All right. So I type in the numbers recorded here, and that will connect me to that person? Exactly, yeah. There aren't a lot of people with these yet, but if you run into one, you can have them give you their number, too. I suppose can discuss matters, then, should I run into trouble? That's the intended use of this, yeah. I'll make sure I can step up for you when you call me, too. Very well. I will count on that. And, of course, don't hesitate to let me know if I can do anything for you, too. I'm personally willing to help in whatever way I can. Gazelle and I exchanged smiles. I didn't think the chances were high that Dworgen would be targeted, but this was still a relief, and we now knew how to stay in touch in an emergency, too. After spending a few days in the Dwarven Kingdom, I moved on to the Kingdom of Farminus. Ghidorah, now an apprentice to Diablo, was staying here, aiding Testarossa as well. We were having him provide all the intelligence he could from within the Empire as we tried to build a rock-solid foundation for Messiake's enthronement. He was a busy man, traveling frequently between the two nations, but for now he had settled down in Farminus, and I wanted to talk things over with him while I could. The Farminus capital was brimming with way more activity than I anticipated. Most of it was under construction the last time I came, and that was still true now, but a lot more of it was looking nice. A large rail station had also been completed just outside of the capital, and warehouses lined the streets nearby. This was a stopover point for traffic between Bloomond and Dworgen, so they needed a lot of storage space for all the different types of goods that came through. This proved difficult within the capital itself, so the station building was put up outside the city. The capital itself was still very much under construction because they wanted to get all the station facilities up and running first, in anticipation of Farminus's future economy. That, and the current Farminus royal family was surely flat broke. To be brutally frank, I was financing basically the entire cost of this construction. Tempest was contracted to lay the rails for the Magitrain lines we were developing, too. You might think we didn't stand to gain much from this besides goodwill, but think again. We'd be earning all the usage fees, and we also had free rights to all the required land for eternity, really, a mind-blowing deal. Once all this construction was over, we'd do nothing but rake in the revenue. Even minus labor, equipment, and rail maintenance costs, we expected quite a bit of yearly profit. So, thanks to those reasons, I was heading up all the Magitrain business. Farminus, meanwhile, handled development for all the surrounding urban area. Queen Njeren was the main person in charge of planning for that stuff, but she had to take some childbirth leave, so Yom, the king, became a more prominent figure. He kept mentioning how uneducated he was, but I felt he had a lot of natural intelligence. He studied urban planning hard so he could fill Njeren's shoes while she was on leave. As a result, even though the pregnancy went without a hitch and she was back in action, Yom was still the go-to man on the project for the kingdom's nobility and government officials. In order to support his efforts, I offered him a series of low-interest, collateral-free loans. Why weren't they no-interest loans, you ask? Well, because it'd make the receiver feel so obligated to me that it'd lead to a lot of needless restraint on their part. It'd make the lender feel like the superior party, and then it wouldn't be a partnership any longer. Lending or borrowing money is a great way to torpedo a friendship if you're not careful, so we drafted an official contract between our nations and enacted it with a clear understanding between ourselves. So, with future economic development the watchword for Farminus at the moment, large-scale construction on the capital was only beginning to roll into action. Checking in at the gate, I watched people go to and fro in the city for a little while before an express wagon was sent over for us. Normally, I should be bringing in all my top officials so we can do this fancy royal visit, stage a parade down the main street, the whole bit, but these were tense times, and an elegant train journey was out of the question. So I just teleported myself over with Ci and Ranga. I contacted Ghidorah to have him bring us a wagon so we wouldn't be too conspicuous here in Farminus. The wagon actually came, too, which relieved me. Unlike Milim's gang, they know how to follow through on promises around here. Very sorry for the delay. King Yom is waiting for you, so I'll take you directly to the palace. In fact, It was Ghidorah himself stepping out of the carriage. He couldn't be more careful, could he? Whoa. You scared me. You didn't have to come meet us at the gate, I told him. Oh, I'd stand for nothing else. And I hardly get to enjoy this honorable role any longer, outside of times like these. Besides, Sir Rimuru, if I did not personally greet you, I rather think Sir Diablo would have my head for it. Ghidorah laughed, but I don't think he meant it as a joke. If he's bullying you around, let me know, all right? You answer directly to me, after all, just like him. He looked like an old man, but I talked to him like he was an even older friend. It felt a little weird, but I was used to it by now. So I gave him a little friendly advice. Diablo is obedient around me but tends to go off the rails when my attention is elsewhere. We could laugh off his antics over in Leon's domain, but pulling that stuff on one of Tempest's closest allies would be a huge problem. Ghidorah was now Diablo's apprentice, or part of his family tree, I suppose it's more accurate to say, so maybe he wasn't in much of a position to complain. It was up to me as the boss to keep everyone on their best behavior. But Ghidorah laughed and said it wasn't a problem. Any hardship, he said, was worth it in the name of new knowledge. It was like a fetish with him. I sure didn't understand it. Best not to get too deeply involved, I thought, resolving to let Ghidorah continue doing what he wanted. Inside the carriage, Ghidorah told me how things went with Masayuki after his crowning. The wagon was taking its time traveling through the city, so we made the best use of it we could. So did Masayuki's coronation go without a hitch? It did, yes. Very smoothly, in fact. Of course, Lady Testarossa and Lady Veilgrind were doing everything they could to back it up, so I'd have been more surprised if it were a failure. Well, with those two on our side, I'll bet it went fine. I wouldn't want the opposite to be true, but, yeah, about what I figured. Masayuki was always blessed by luck, so to speak, and he had both the talented Testarossa and the rock of strength that was Veilgrind. You'd have to be crazy to oppose them. Once the citizens saw the full glory of Lady Veilgrind, Ghidorah said, they were more than welcoming of the new Emperor Masayuki. Really, anyone who was there to see it wouldn't ever dream of defying her again. Well, yeah. Triggering a volcanic eruption, then using her own powers to block it. Like, she conjured up the biggest natural disaster ever, then put an end to it without causing any damage. I don't think anyone would complain to her after that. And tapping into a volcano for the task. Veilgrind really doesn't know what too much means. There were some who voiced their disapproval, of course, but I believe Lady Testarossa will be addressing those complaints. You think it'll work out? It will not be a problem. Some, like Sir Caligulio, were concerned that Lady Testarossa would simply kill any potential opposition, but those worries, at least, appear unfounded. She's making exceptionally good use of the information I provide her, and Sir Moss's own skills are proving quite impressive. He's done a perfect job, digging up dirt on the enemy and wrapping things up neatly. I'm sure of that. I'd never want them to work for my enemies. Well, if anyone over there's brave enough to oppose it, I'd almost want to scout them for my own nation. You're certainly right on that point. I know I'd never say no to them. No doubt about it. Like I said, anyone who saw what unfolded would feel exactly the same as me. Ghidorah and I had a little laugh over this. He really is a fun old guy to hang out with. And considering how much we thought alike on this topic, I really feel like we made a close connection here. Inside the castle, we were greeted by the full set of ministers and officials, King Yom and Queen Njaran leading them. Edmaris, the former king of Farmus, was casually mixed in among them, notably thinner and also with his beard shaved. He looked like a different man from when I first met him, especially given how pure and uncorrupted his eyes looked now. I didn't speak to him, though, since it'd just be awkward. This was technically an unofficial visit, but we informed them in advance that we wanted to discuss the great threat facing us. I'd wish nothing more than for Farminus to be spared in this war, but everybody knew that this was far too optimistic a thought. It was still a newborn nation, one with limited financial resources, as mentioned, they were highly dependent on Tempestian investment. What's more, their military hadn't really recovered yet. You can't train a new set of knights in a day, and it went without saying that they didn't have the budget for soldiers of fortune. I had a lot to do with that, yes, but I'm not planning to shoulder any of the blame. You can't fight for the greater good if you get bogged down over every little detail. I don't think everything I've done is just, but I still want to declare as much in public. Otherwise, I'd be doing a disservice to everyone who died along the way. So, yeah, I owe them one, but I'm not gonna say it out loud. But we have an alliance going, so I intended to offer them as much support as I could. Sending Ghidorah here was part of it, and the royal court understood that well enough. The government knew, in so many words, that they'd better not mess around with me too much right now. Well, boss, things improvin' any for ya? Yom asked on behalf of everyone else. I've worked out some countermeasures with the other demon lords, but honestly, we're gonna have to see what happens. But that makes me pretty anxious, so I'm visiting a bunch of different nations at the moment. Ghidorah had already reported the news, so I didn't see any surprise from him. He showed me where to place my transport magic circle without prompting, too. You can ask Ghidorah here for help on fine-tuning and how to use it. Anytime, Sir Rimuru. So we can use this to evacuate if we're against the wall, huh? But the big question is, who'll stay and who'll go? It's an important one, yeah. Your destination may not be much safer. It might be a cold comfort at best. Well, boss, if your nation gets taken down, there ain't gonna be no running anywhere after that, for sure. If it happens, we'll just chalk it up to fate, you know? Yom was awfully brisk about it. The other ministers nodded in agreement. Maybe people around here fear me more than I gave them credit for. The prevailing wisdom seemed to be that if I couldn't beat something, they had no chance to start with, a pretty funny thing to think, really. Hey, don't just admit defeat like that. You're supposed to struggle until the very end, you know that. Sure we do. My baby girl was only born a little bit ago, I'm not about to die now. She hasn't even called me daddy yet. Glad to see he's already a doting father. He was poking at Meme, the little girl in Mjoran's arms, as he spoke. I didn't know that. But don't crowd her too much. You'll wake her up. That was likely to anger Mjoran, her mother, so I thought fit to offer that advice. Being thoughtful like that is the sign of a successful person, I think, probably. I wish you were around to say that more often, a sign, Mjoran said. Whenever this girl comes up, it's like he loses all common sense. Sounds like a pretty typical set of parents, then. Well, you know that stupid wolf who claims that it's his girl. We can't let our guard down for a moment. I had no idea what Yom was talking about. Don't be ridiculous. I'm second in line for the throne, so that means I'm gonna marry Mjoran someday. And when I do, that'll make me my daughter, you know. God damn it, Gruasith, stop with that creepy junk already. How many times do I have to tell you, your whole assumption is demented? Oh. Okay. Yom's a little weird, but Gruasith the stupid wolf is wholly off his rocker. I know Meme's cute and all, but any claims that she belongs to him are sheer fantasy. I must admit, I have to side with Yom here. Right? You hear that, Gruasith? I knew you'd understand, Ross. Apparently Yom was obsessed about hanging with Meme whenever he could find time in his busy schedule, lest she forget about him as a father. It was a very touching effort he was making, just to ensure that Gruasith didn't somehow win her over. Still, in times like these, having a distraction was important. No matter how stupid it was, anything that kept your mind off things should be welcomed. However, just try not to act stupid all the time, okay? Because comic relief characters often wind up being the first to die. I decided to offer a little advice to Yom and his court, based on my video game experience. We held a more formal conference in an assembly hall that dated back to the glory days of Farmus. The itinerary was pretty well laid out in advance, so things went smoothly with my presentation. I wasn't asking Yom and his government for war support. All I'd be doing was helping Farminus's people evacuate, if need be. That transport magic circle didn't have enough capacity for everyone, so we needed to decide in advance who'd have access to it. This I asked them to work out for themselves, so there wouldn't be chaos if push came to shove. That being said, any destination they'd go to might not be safe, either. The main goal of this magic circle wasn't to transport dignitaries out, but to transport needed war power to where it belonged. If Farmanus became a battleground, the newly established Knight Corps would be called up. Bruaseath had been training up both the new recruits and the old Farmus Knights, but I couldn't expect them to be nearly enough. So I planned for reinforcements to be sent from other nations. It'd be nice if we could set everything up in advance, but we didn't know where the enemy would aim at first, so we needed as much flexibility as possible. In terms of importance, Farmanus was admittedly rather low priority. If the kingdom fell, we could rebuild it later. As long as we kept casualties to a minimum, I didn't see the need for them to resist down to the last man. I wavered over telling Yome's government about this, but I did, and they accepted it well enough. Worst-case scenario, we'd help them rebuild. I promised them all the support I could spare for that. This sort of political groundwork was key if we wanted to use our limited resources as best we could. "Yeah, I know, boss," said Yome. "I know you're not gonna just abandon us." "Nah. But keep in mind, the transport magic circle can only handle 50 or so people at a time. It's not nearly enough to be cheering about. Still, a nation's only obligated to protect itself, you know. But here you are, making all these arrangements. Why, I couldn't hardly ask for any more." I felt like Yome directed that less at me and more at some of his dubious government ministers. I could understand their point of view, even if they didn't voice it. They wanted help, they didn't want citizens to die, and they wanted more weaponry. Unfortunately, I could only spare so much. I'm sure they understood, that's why they begrudgingly agreed to it. Regardless, that was the end of my errand in Farmanus. Yome then took us around to see a few sites. The most impressive one was the construction site where they were building some of their most important facilities. Farmanus was using the same capital city as Farmus, so the central part of town, encircled by defensive walls, was the noble quarter. The neighborhoods grew poorer the farther away you went from there, with free citizens shunted out to the far edges of the city walls. A lot of rezoning was going on to address this inequality, and as part of it, they were digging up the road that went through the heart of town and building a large tunnel. This would house a subway that'd go from the station next to the capital right into the city itself. Pretty ambitious move. Yeah, Mjaran is really something else. Using magic to evaluate the strength of the ground, coming up with all those plans. Magic really is a cheat sometimes. Geological surveys were a pain in the ass at the best of times, but a talented enough sorcerer could complete one without breaking a sweat, or breaking any ground. Searching for underground water veins, cavities, weaker soil, other features, they could grasp all of that. In fact, they could even conduct soil improvements, working with earth, sand, soft or hard soil, you name it. All hail magic. No wonder science hasn't advanced much around here. That's exactly why the Empire, and those vampires we treated as weirdos, were seen as so unusual for their focus on technology. They're making incredibly beneficial discoveries, though, so I saw no reason to make fun of them. Well, it's nothing I would have come up with. I didn't think tunneling shields were something I'd ever see in this world, for example, but with magic, you can kind of build the equivalent, can't you? I dunno what that tunneling shield would be, but I'm sure our stuff's just as good, huh? It's this thing that bores through the earth while providing a support structure to prevent cave-ins. It's a really large-scale machine, but a talented sorcerer could do the same thing, yeah. Or even better, maybe. I remember telling people in the past that it'd be neat if we could run trains underground. Mjaran remembered that, and now she actually made it happen, which left me beyond impressed. Rosin apparently pitched in as well, helping to complete this out-of-the-box otherworld approach to construction. It saved a lot of money, too. And besides, it's not a matter of winning or losing. Applying the right technology to magic really could trigger a revolution around here, I felt. So we're thinking that we'll delay construction for now and use the tunnel as a shelter. The ceilings are all reinforced by magic, so it should hold out even if some magic blast torches the city. It'll depend on the scope of the destruction, but I think it'd make for a good air raid shelter, yeah. Keep a supply of food and water in there, and you could hole up in there for a pretty long time, yeah, and it sounds like we can magically supply the water, so we'd only need to ship food inside. We dug several tunnels for use as sleeping quarters, along with rooms with doors and big holes in the bottom. For use as latrines, they told me. He took me into one such room, which, well, was a public bathroom, all right. It was divided into lots of cubicles, and I'd estimate a good 100 people could use it at the same time. The toilets were the standard sit-down type, but waste just dropped right into the hole below like an old-style outhouse. But won't it stink really bad, being underground and all? You'd think so, wouldn't you? But we spread wood chips and stuff like that underneath, and they said it removes the smell entirely. Oh. So it's like one of those composting toilets? That was outside of my expertise, but you could use these microorganisms to break down waste and turn it into water and carbon dioxide, right? That is generally correct, yes. I have checked this facility and confirmed that it does function as intended, so problems related to smell are unlikely to occur. Ah, wonderful. And as Yom explained, they had 5 of these bathrooms ready to go. Sounds like they'd be all set, even in the event of a long siege. The tunnel also extended all the way underneath the palace, keeping the royalty prepared for anything. I was relieved to hear that, relieved, and newly excited about the technology of this world. So, yeah, our city's defensive barrier is airtight, and we're holding evacuation drills regularly, too. The moment we spot the enemy, we're sending everyone right down there. That's why your ministers didn't demand too much from me? Well, pretty much, yeah. And I ain't about to let any of them act stupid in public, either. If all they can do is whine about how tough life is, well, don't let the front door hit you on the backside on the way out, and all that. As Yom saw it, anyone can complain, what matters is keeping your head up and being constructive. This he told me with a smile. I gotta say, he's grown such an incredible amount from when I first met him. It was a reminder that anybody's got the potential to transform, if they're really forced to. Back on the surface, we headed over to their training grounds. I wanted to see how well Gruasith was training the new Farminus Knight Corps. There I found that they had around 500 knights that ranked B or higher, along with 3,000 that merited a C or below. If they gathered able-bodied citizens from across the land, they could amass a force of around 40,000, but numbers like that won't count for much in this war, so this corps was chiefly focused on peacekeeping duties. Makes sense. If a huge angel force came along, it's not like they could do very much from the surface, right? We got some anti-air magic, to be sure, but not a whole lot of sorcerers to cast it, you know? Rommel decided that it's better for us to concentrate on defending our city via legion magic. Rosen agreed with that, too, added Gruasith, so that's how we've been conducting our training. For these knights, if enemies come flying down from the air, their mission's to get the residents to safety. At least they weren't sending them out for a bloody battle against the invaders. That gladdened me. I was a bit worried you'd take a far more reckless strategy. Ha ha ha. I'm a lot more of a coward than Sir Phobio, you know. I realize how far my abilities can take me, and I'm not going to take any further risk, Gruasith said. Of course, Rosen has been training me, so I think I'm stronger than before. And I had a sudden surge of new power recently, too. So I'm ready to be a shield for our citizens. I've got a knight captain title to live up to. I wouldn't call him a coward at all. Cold decision-making is the one asset any commander needs the most. Knowing how calculating Gruasith can be, I doubt he'd misjudge any gaps between himself and the enemy. But I wondered what that surge of new power was. Certainly, Gruasith's magicule count put him up there with the 3 lycanthropeers, rating maybe a special A. Between that and his skill level, I was sure he'd grown into quite a powerful presence. And even though his lot was cast with Yom now, he never forgot his respect for Carillion, and given that surge, the reverse was probably true as well. It proved there was still a deep bond between the two of them. Well, that's because Carillion had an awakening and evolved. You got to enjoy some of the effects of it. Sir Carillion did? Yep. So don't let that new power go to waste, okay? Oh, of course, yes. I know that full well. Ah, I'm sure you didn't need me to remind you. Ha ha ha. Don't worry about it. I'm glad to know the reason, and Sir Carillion fully recognizes your talents as well. I genuinely appreciate it. Nice. Didn't want him thinking I was lecturing him or something. Great to hear, then. By the way, you said Rosen was training you? Good old Rosen. It's thanks to him that I thought about spreading Raman across this world in the first place. He was a sorcerer, wasn't he? But he can outclass Gruasith in battle, too. Oh, yes, Rosen can do just about anything. His magic knowledge is on par with Mjuran's, and... Hey, that's Queen Mjuran to you, bozo. Ah, shut up. She'll be mine someday, you. Shut that damn mouth of yours right now. Okay, enough fighting. You were saying? I was getting a little sick of this comedy act, so I pushed things along. To sum up Gruasith's explanation, when Rosen seized the body of an otherworlder named Shogo, he was able to make that guy's power his own. He couldn't take all the skills and stuff, but Rosen's kind of in-the-trenches experience made him both a wizard and a first-class martial artist. He was killer when it came to punch and kick attacks, and that's what he was imparting to Gruasith. The idea of fighting just with your natural gifts. It made no sense to me at first. Gruasith chuckled a bit. I'll bet, replied Yom. Sare beat Rosen in muscle, but he couldn't even beat Rosen in an arm wrestling match. Nobody could take him on in actual combat, either. Man, was I impressed. Rosen's name as a magic born was huge all across the Western nations, and I sure could see why. No wonder the three lycanthropeers kept such a keen eye out for him. But... Gruasith stopped there, looking at me, and then he shook his head. Oh, I know, Gruasith, Yom said, patting him on the shoulder. As I wondered what this meant, they looked at each other and sighed. There's always someone better out there, huh, boss? Yeah, exactly. And when he was faced with Sir Ghidorah, Rosen got played with like a little baby, too. I just about lost my mind, watching it. Ah. That kind of thing? Well, yeah. Diablo called Rosen a weakling who'd never cause me any problem, and I got a bunch more people like him, besides. Ghidorah's strong, for sure. I had no doubt about that, but in Tempest, he'd maybe be in the middle ranks? But after becoming part of Diablo's family, I think he's been undergoing some kind of weird evolution, so maybe I'll need to adjust my opinion. Still, I don't think he'd make it to the top ranks. This talk was making me wonder what Ghidorah was up to, actually. But speaking of Rosen and Ghidorah, I don't see either of them in here. Are they off doing something else? Yom gave me a half-smile. They're trainin', of course. They show up for things like your visit or when we're talking about our future direction, but outside of that, they're pretty much always fightin'. For real? Really real, yeah. Gruasith was nodding, too, so it must be true. Here I thought Ghidorah's talents were more strategic in nature, I didn't know he liked fighting that much. Maybe Diablo's been a bad influence? That concern flashed across my mind, but I hurriedly banished it. If you're curious, I could bring you over. I gratefully accepted Yom's offer, and so we were off to see how Ghidorah and Rosen were doing. We were taken to a field a good hour away by carriage. On it was a simple little cottage, a bit reminiscent of a vacation home, and nothing else, just wild plains, as far as I could see. Only 4 people lived here, Yom said, and I could guess who they were: Rosen, the most powerful fighter in Farminus, along with 2 of the former 3 battle sages, Sare and Grigori, and finally, Ghidorah. Pretty interesting combo, I thought. When we arrived, they were all standing in a row to greet us. It was kinda weird seeing Ghidorah speak for them as if he was their boss. "It is a tremendous honor to see you travel all the way here," said Ghidorah. Rozen, Sare, and Grigori bowed along with his greeting, to me, not Yom. "Hey," said Yom. "I'm here too, you know." "Your Majesty," Rozen said, "Sare and Grigori are guests of Farmanus, but they have not pledged your loyalty to you. They were therefore expressing their respect to Lord Rimuru, the master of Sir Ghidorah, on their own volition." "Oh, I know. You don't have to keep lecturing me over stuff that's better left unsaid." Rozen tried his best to assuage the whining Yom, but to me, they seemed a lot friendlier with each other than I thought. I don't know how Rozen felt about it, but he was considered a loyal subject of Farmanus. I didn't think he had a shred of loyalty for Yom, but judging by this attitude, maybe he cared about him after all. But outside of them, I had no idea why Sare and Grigori would care to act polite around me. By their own volition, though? Why act so nice to me? I was curious enough to ask. Yom looked on, just as curious about this. I guess it was news to him, too. If they wanted to move to Tempest, I could consider the request. I don't think Hinata was out hunting for Sare and Grigori so she could execute them as traitors or whatever. "We have a very clear reason, my lord. Our instructor Master Rozen has shown us just how immature we were, but Holy Master Ghidorah has shown us the true nature of your Majesty. It has left a deep impression upon us, and we now wish to be a part of your force, however low you may place us." "Holy Master?" "Yes, indeed. Sir Ghidorah's strength was beyond imagination, your Majesty, but he tells us that he couldn't even hold a candle to you. And not just you. When he told me there were many strong people in your force that he couldn't stand a chance against, well, it inspired in us a desire to try our hand against them sometime." Grigori was eagerly pleading his case, but he got interrupted by Ranga jumping out from my shadow. "Well said. Grigori was your name. I always thought you had immense potential. If I may suffice, I would happily let you test your skills against me." Ah. It's that dog from back then." No, Sir Ranga, I mean." Grigori was breaking into a worryingly intense cold sweat as he stood there shaking. "I guess Ranga kicked his ass at some point. Did that cause some kind of trauma in him?" "No way." "Well, if he's offering, why don't you accept?" "Huh?" "Gladly, my master." No, I. Come, Grigori. Let us go a distance away, so we do not harm my master." Wait." So Ranga grabbed Grigori by the neck, with his mouth, and joyfully pranced off. I couldn't see Grigori's expression, but I'm sure he was delighted that his wish had come true and stuff. It almost teared me up, seeing them go, and everyone else was the same way. I'd like to test my skill as well, but, I'm still too immature, so I'd maybe prefer someone a little lower in rank." Sare sounded like he'd rather be anywhere else right now. "I'm sure. Ranga's strong enough to be my watchdog, so he's ranked pretty high, yeah. Grigori sure ain't afraid of a challenge, is he?" "Absolutely not. I believe he's cultivated a fear of dogs ever since he lost to Sir Ranga. Perhaps he's attempting to overcome it today?" Sare's conjecture made Rozen bring an embarrassed hand to his forehead. Next to him, though, Yom and Ghidorah were chatting away. "Not even I could pose a threat to Ranga," said the old man. "He must truly be a fool." "Yeah? Pretty drastic treatment he's taking, I guess. Well, good on him. I'd never volunteer for that." "You don't need to, your Majesty. As the king of this land, nobody is seeking physical feats of strength from you." "Well, I do want to get stronger, you know. I just know my limits these days, is all. Now that I've come to know Rimuru and his whole gang, it's pretty damn clear to me that a little muscle doesn't count for too much. It won't go to waste, perhaps, but you're right. At best, it'd let you struggle on for a bit longer until help hopefully arrived in time." "Yeah. But I'll keep up my training, you know. Gotta protect the people I love, as much as I can." "A fine idea." Seemed like Yom was beginning to settle into his position as king. Better not let him get ahead of me. I'm not planning to perform any crazy stunts like Grigori, though. It's one firm step after the other. And it looked like Rosen had recognized Yom as king, too. As long as the king keeps doing his all for his nation, he said, I will do everything I can to help you. I have a promise with Queen Njuran that I will take in Princess Meme as an apprentice in due time, so I'll be sure to protect her above all others. He had supported the kingdom of Farmus for hundreds of years, and I'm sure Yom loved having a rock like him around. But I was thinking about something else, namely, how much Rosen spoke like an old grandfather, despite not looking that far removed from college. As we talked about this and that, Ranga came back with a limp Grigori in his mouth. My master, we only played a little bit, and then he stopped moving. Too much, boy. Look, you're not Shion, are you? You know how to hold back a little, right? I evaluated Grigori as I scolded Ranga. Fortunately, the man had only fainted. I have to say, he should have known better. Why did he mention Ranga out of nowhere? I could understand if he wanted revenge or something. But he really needed to know his place. I'm not so sure that's the case, boss. Huh? He'd never want to fight him. In fact, he told me he didn't want to ever see him again. Really? That's what Yom and Sare said, but maybe I had this all wrong, then? Because Sare, in particular, said the exact opposite a little bit ago. So instead of being delighted to see Ranga again, he wanted to run away as soon as possible? No, I'm not so sure. He was a courageous man, boldly striving to take on a foe he had already lost to once. I'm really moved by that. That's why I gave Ranga permission to fight him. Right, Ranga. If I called it my mistake, that'd be admitting responsibility. Grigori was safe, luckily, so I pretended to not know any better. And Ranga kindly backed me up. Yes, exactly. I was so overwhelmed by the force of this man's spirit that I'm afraid I went a little too far. What a talent. And way to gloss over all his own mistakes, too. He's developed a bit of a crafty streak lately, not that I'd know who he got it from. But thanks to his clutch teamwork, Yom and his friends were convinced. Yes, Sir Rimuru is exactly right. Isn't he, all of you? Yeah, if the boss says so, I'm sure it's true. I have no disagreement with that. Perhaps you were mistaken, Sare. Ah, right. Yes, Grigori's become a far gutsier man as of late. Good, good. No problems now. Yeah. I respect that kind of thing. A lot. I know. I'll call him Mr. Grigori from now on. That was my reward for him, but when he opened his eyes, Grigori himself promptly turned down the offer. My little tour of Farmanus was over. After talking it over with Yom, we agreed to let Sare and Grigori live in Tempest for training purposes. I worried about Farmanus losing those valuable weapons, but with Ghidorah still there, I was sure it would work out. Him and Rosen, too. Unless the main enemy force attacked all at once, they could probably buy enough time until we showed up. If that happened, Sare and Grigori would be little more than a drop in the bucket anyway. So, instead of fretting over every scenario, I decided to work on their talents and prep them for whatever came up. By the way, comparing all of them in terms of fighting power produced some pretty interesting results. In terms of their estimate magicule count alone, Sare was at the top, followed by Rosen, Grigori, then Gruasith. Yom, no offense to him, wasn't even in the competition. With Hakuro's hellish training and the abilities of his equipment, he could just barely rank an A, and I wouldn't expect him to grow fast in a short time. Gruasith, I have to say, was truly one of the Beastmaster's Warrior Alliance elites. The gifts from Carillion had brought him up to the level of Grigori, the ex-Battlesage, but it'd be a problem for a knight captain to leave the nation and he wasn't asking to anyway, so I didn't take him. He said he'd pay us a visit once everything was wrapped up. So here's Grigori, the first new guest to Tempest. An iron wall of a man with a special skill known as impervious. He likes to wield a halberd, but he's a talented martial artist as well. He lost big to Ranga, but he was enlightened level, putting him close to a demon lord seed, and his existence points totaled around 400,000. Certainly stronger than I thought, and with the right training, he might even have another breakout. He'd join us alongside Sare, the former chief knight of the Master Rooks over in Luminous, although he lost the role after Hinata defeated him. A former battle sage, he'd fought against Diablo, which eventually brought him over to Farminus. Guess he has a knack for picking bad opponents. Just like Grigori, luck hasn't always been on his side, but there's no doubting his abilities. As a saint, his EP was over 1 million, a shocking discovery for me. Having him attempt a serious labyrinth run could be pretty neat. Rozen, by the way, was only a little higher than Grigori in magicule count, but his actual power was well above Sare's. When he took Shogo Taguchi's body, he apparently also earned the unique skills Berserker and Survivor. According to Seal, unique skills may either bond to a person's heartcore, be carved into their soul, or take residence in their astral, spiritual, or material bodies. There are abilities that can seize skills from the enemy, but they only work if the skill is in residence like that. Some exceptional skills can reside in the soul instead, but those could be snatched away as well, so if a skill's carved into a soul, that makes it much harder to steal? Not for certain. However, if it has bonded to a heart core, it is impossible to remove. Seal sounded confident enough about that. You could just copy a skill instead of stealing it, though, which is why Michael could do all this crazy stuff. But anyway, after obtaining these two unique skills, Rozen realized that he could take far better advantage of them than Shogo could. That's why he dominated Sare despite having maybe half his magicules, a real testament to his abilities. However, that was only in the early stages. Sare had his own unique skill, something called All-Rounder, which let him identify and learn any technique after watching an enemy use it just once. Rozen, aware of this, had taught Sare every technique and magic spell he could think of. Magic was an art as well, a skill derived from one's knowledge, and while he wasn't a natural at it, Sare never complained, constantly asking for more instruction. That's why he called him his master. So, by this point, Sare was stronger than Rozen in name and deed. But Ghidorah still beat the crap out of him, apparently. How do their EPs compare? Displaying Ghidorah's information. Name, Ghidorah, EP, 1,126,666. Race, high-level Chaos Elemental Metal Demon. Protection, Noir Clan. Title, Servant Number 2 Pucci. Magic, Dark Magic, Elemental Magic. Ability, Ultimate Gift Grimoire. Tolerances, Cancel Melee Attack, Cancel Ailments, Cancel Spiritual Attack, Cancel Natural Elements, Resist Chaos Attack. There were a few things in his file I could comment about, but it was best to focus my limited energy elsewhere. I was asking for a comparison with Sare, but in terms of EP, Ghidorah was ahead of him. Honestly, I didn't think he had grown this strong. He sure wasn't at this level before his reincarnation anyway. His magical knowledge was now off the charts, his skill levels quite a sight to see, but when judging battle skill alone, I wouldn't call him a threat. He was a shrewd player, though, crafty to the core. If he were on the enemy's side, you'd want to crush him first. That was my honest evaluation of him. Thinking of it that way, I'd say Ghidorah made a string of good choices. He was still alive, for one, and he was now a full member of my hierarchy. In terms of ability and actual battle, he had surpassed Sare the Sage. Sare's all-rounder skill is quite a menace, but actually quite simple to counteract. Just use a basic, frontal approach, and you're all good. No arts, no magic, just overwhelming melee strikes. If you do resort to magic, cast it when you're going in for the kill, so he can't copy you. I had heard Sare lost to Hinata, and now I could guess why. Hinata never dropped her guard, so I'm sure she fought Sare without revealing any of her cards. This meant he had nothing to copy from her, so he immediately lost the advantage his unique skill gave him. This time, too, the clincher that helped Ghidorah beat him was the presence of his ultimate skill. Ghidorah's just as crafty, after all, so maybe he didn't reveal his full hand to Sare, either, but even if he did, Sare wasn't likely to copy it. A unique skill can't compete against an ultimate, after all. Looking at it that way reminded me of how eminently unfair it was, me being able to shower my subordinates with ultimate gifts. The ultimate skill grimoire, by the way, was in the same family as Adalman's Necronomicon and boasted similar abilities. These included Hasten Thought, Universal Detect, Lord's Ambition, Cast Cancel, Analyze, and Assess, all of Creation, Mental Strike, Browse Knowledge, and Share Concept. Browse Knowledge let him learn stuff from Seal, and Share Concept was a skill that let him share stuff with Adalman, apparently. Another case of Seal taking someone's wishes and turning them into just the right abilities. Anyway, that explained why Ghidorah was stronger than Sare. And I also had a general idea of Sare's actual ability, too. I knew that the Crusaders were making regular labyrinth runs, but Apito's floor was as far as they'd reached, right? And that was before Adalman's evolution, so I'm not sure how good a reference point that is, but anyway, they had visited the labyrinth recently, and we had a full set of data for them. Arnaud and Renard were the standouts in strength among their band, their existence points both close to 500,000. The other squad leader class Crusaders were at around 300,000, too, definitely a big leap up from the early days. That put them on the same level as Grigori, and maybe it'd be fun to put them all in the same party, actually. As for Sare, I think I'll pair him up with Hakuro, given how easily he can learn other people's arts. He'd probably make a great training partner for the kids, and I wanted him to learn a lot in Tempest. Not any of our national secrets, but still. So I now had a general idea of how Sare and Grigori would train with us. For the time being we'd let them get used to things down in the labyrinth. I gave Benimaru a quick rundown about Sare and Grigori, so they'd be sent to their respective training sites when the timing was right. So I'll be taking care of someone again? If you could, please. Throwing them right at Hakuro might just lead to confusion. Yes, true, Benimaru said with a chuckle. But we went through the same experience, remember? You sure you're not being overprotective? He had a point, but this pair were guests of Tempest. If they were moving in for good, that'd be another thing, but I didn't want them to get too reckless. And speaking of training. So how are Carillion and Frey doing? Pair. It's pretty interesting, actually. The moment Benimaru said that, Seal put up some data for me. Name, Carillion, EP, 2,773,537. Race, Beast God, High-Level Chaos Elemental Light Soul Beast. Name, Frey, EP, 1,948,734. Race, Bird God, High-Level Chaos Elemental Sky Soul Bird. Damn, my labyrinth was scary. Seal was giving me these EP figures, basically people's personal information, in a flash. When Carillion and Frey evolved, they achieved some level of divinity. Frey's EP was just under 2 million, but I guess she still passed the test for demigodhood anyway. It must not be a strict cutoff. Their skills and tolerances weren't divulged to me, but awakening and becoming a true demon lord granted them all the strength you'd expect. Awakening boosted my magicule count a good 10 times over, but Carillion and Frey didn't seem to power up quite that much. It must vary from person to person. In my personal estimation, pre-evolution Carillion had an EP of around 700,000, with Frey's maybe a bit under 400,000. Assuming that wasn't wholly off the mark, Carillion's strength went up 4 times and Frey's nearly 5 times. But then, maybe my stats were relatively low when I went through with it. When I thought about it, that was pretty obvious. I really need to think in terms of how much improvement was shown, not how many times stronger they became. It seems clear, though, that the more EP you have, the more intense the power you receive upon awakening. Now it was time to use this data to perform a little battle analysis. Carillion's bodily abilities nearly tripled when he transformed, but convert that into EP, and I don't think it was even a doubling. No, I think that's just a temporary ability boost, that transformation didn't give him omnipotent powers, safe to say. It just meant he'd get weaker again once time expired. That also applied to Gable and his crew, not just Carillion. If not for that time limit, they just spend all day transformed, after all. Still, transformation does have its advantages. It heals your wounds, refills your stamina, and does a bunch of other stuff. It was one of the merits of being a lycanthrope, and I wasn't about to downplay it. All about how you use it, really. So how well was the transformed Carillion using his newfound powers? How are they looking to you? I asked Benimaru. Well, Sir Carillion took me on first. Revenge, as he called it. Huh? Do you remember when we sent an observation team over to Eurasania? He failed to land anything on me back then. So I tested out the awakened Sir Carillion to see how much I had grown. I think some wires got crossed. I wanted to test out Carillion and Frey's powers with everything I had, not Benimaru's. What would that achieve? On second thought, maybe that's no biggie. Benimaru, fighting for keeps, against Carillion, bringing out everything he's got. In the labyrinth, where nobody has to die. I couldn't imagine a more entertaining card, actually. Ramirez and her team recorded everything for me, so I'll sit back and relax with the video later. For now, let's just hear the results. And who won? Me, Iron Nose. Oh, that's great. I praised Benimaru, but internally, I was unsure how to react. I realized that something in me was so assured of his victory that hearing how close it was unnerved me. But by a nose, huh? How did it go? Before Benimaru could address my curiosity, an image flashed across my mind. It appears Carillion unleashed one of his hidden techniques as his first move. Nice one, Seal. It immediately gave me the info I sought. And as Seal said, the video revealed that Carillion was the first to move. Weapon in hand, he sank down in a flowing motion, and the next moment, his entire body began to glow. Then he quite literally turned into a storm of particles, all streaming Benimaru's way. Carillion has named it Burst Roar. It transforms his body into a sentient stream of particles that plunge into their target. Call it an ever-changing scattering/converging particle ray. Sentient, huh? With Carillion awakened, he'd acquired all the unique traits of a spiritual life form. I could see how the light doubled back and consumed Benimaru after he dodged it the first time. The moment the fight began, I felt a shiver down my spine, or I could just tell something bad was coming my way, Benimaru explained. I knew I couldn't just stand there, so I triggered some shimmering haze. This shimmering haze was something at the deepest level of his form-hide skill set. It kept any kind of attack from tracking down his body. Unless an ultimate skill was involved in the attack, it'd never work against him. If he didn't use that, however, Benimaru would have lost in the first shot. Carillion was working at a speed several hundred times the speed of sound, in a similar vein to Veilgrin's own ultra-speed attacks. I'm amazed Benimaru dodged it, but if the light could home right back in on him, there was nothing he could do. It took his ultimate skill Amaterasu, Lord of Shimmering Flame, to hold out against it. So your sixth sense and your ultimate skill made all the difference. Yes, it was quite dangerous. My pride convinced me that victory would come far easier. It's proven to be a good, if painful, lesson. Yeah, I had no doubt you'd win, so I'm not sure how to take this, either. Pride and carelessness are two shortcuts to defeat, you know, and they're also difficult to keep watch over. Good thing you picked up on this before the real fight. I know. Even if I'm aware of it, my subconscious still lets me grow conceited. That's why they call it being careless, but it's truly a scary thing. You said it. Carillion gave us both a good reminder of the dangers of underestimating matters. I had to thank him for that. But after that little post-mortem, I sipped the cup of café au lait prepared by Shuna as we continued talking. Did you fight against Frey, then? No, after watching the two of us fight, Frey decided that she didn't have a chance against me. You know how she hates wasting time and effort, of course. Ah, yes, she did seem that way. I nodded. Benimaru was right. And Frey was never the belligerent type, so I could understand that reaction. She was much more methodical, something that Millin complained to me endlessly about. It was beyond infuriating to mill him, in fact, but it was none of my business, so I just nodded and said yeah a few times. So, after that, we talked about the two of them marching into the labyrinth to see how far their skills could take them. Yeah, that'd be the quickest and easiest way to test her strength, maybe. Yes. They both went in solo, beginning on floor 51. The video played in my brain as Benimaru commentated. Seal's always on point like that. First, Carillion. He gave Benimaru a good run for his money, and he proved why as he steadily advanced. Ghidorah was absent from floor 60, so he got a free pass through there, but chances are Carillion would have wiped the floor with him. That's how much of a head of steam he had going. It turns out he had tested his strength against Adalman and his army, too, back when they returned to do some fine-tuning on the transport magic circle. It was 3 against 1, and Carillion still took them down easily. It's hardly a wonder why. He wasn't shy about using Burst Roar back then, either, and Adalman had no time to devise any countermeasures. Venti was their tank, with Alberto providing hit-and-run raid attacks and Adalman serving as main attacker, but that combo fell apart the moment Venti got toasted first. Carillion then went straight for Adalman, ignoring Alberto entirely, like a mighty lion on the hunt, mane flowing in the air. Actually, it's the female lions that do most of the hunting for. I know that. Seal's commentary is incredibly useful, but sometimes I feel like it's making fun of me. And it's not the first time. It's been going on since back in the Great Sage days, hasn't it? I will be more careful. If you could, please. I nodded, my feelings hurt. But anyway, Carillion's Burst Roar had an insane amount of force. Adalman's main attribute is light, but so is Carillion's. There was no advantage or disadvantage there, so it just came down to a strength contest. The thing that piqued my interest was the fact that Adalman possessed an ultimate gift. I don't think Carillion had an ultimate skill, or any god-class gear, either. So how did he beat him? Because I think Seal smugly stated to me that only an ultimate could beat another ultimate. That is not in my memory. Oh, it's not. I feel like I'm being gaslit here, but I'm not too confident I'm right, either. Carillion now has the properties of a spiritual life form. That, combined with the force of his will, has likely given him strength equivalent to an ultimate. I see. That thinking makes sense. So Carillion simply possesses enough attack force to overcome a multi-layer barrier reinforced by Adalman's Necronomicon. So Carillion's next opponent was Kumara. She sent a request to fight him ahead of anyone else remaining, and we accepted it. Oh? Yeah, Zijin's stronger than her nowadays. Maybe I need to rethink the labyrinth's boss floors sometime soon. Yeah. But it actually resulted in a pretty good fight. More video popped into my brain. Kumara went all out from the start, declining to summon any of her tail beasts. She had heard about Adalman's defeat, but apparently she didn't ask how the battle proceeded. Knowing your enemy's preferred moves can make a world of difference in battle, but she made a deliberate decision to challenge him fair and square. Carillion had the EP advantage, but Kumara had the ultimate skill Bahamut, Lord of Fantastic Beasts. Here, too, he broke out Burst Roar first thing, but this time, the light formed into several flashing rays, extending out at Kumara from all directions. In response, Kumara leapt into the air and invoked Dominate Gravity. The sudden intense gravitational pull made the light itself bend, pushing it down so it struck nowhere but at her legs. I don't think Kumara planned that defense, it was just a bit of good luck for her. But she failed to capitalize with a counterattack, opting instead to prioritize her healing. Couldn't her tail beast's legs propel her instead? She could resurrect those any time if she had the magicules for it, which would make it hard for an evenly matched foe to knock her out entirely. So Carillion's first strike didn't work, and soon after, he reverted back to his usual form. There must be a time limit to that particle mode after all. But instead of pursuing Kumara, he kept his distance, White Tiger Blue Dragon sword at the ready. Kumara watched him from above, and he sneered back, thinking about his next move. Their eyes met, and the next moment, there was an intense rumble. Kumara dove down at terminal speed, unleashing a piercing attack with her 9 tails. Carillion, on the other side, focused his magic on his blade and invoked Beast Roar. It was Kumara who won the clash. Carillion's particle beam dissipated, and the white tiger blue dragon's sword shattered to pieces. Victory is mine. Shouting with joy, Kumara attempted to strike the final blow. But it didn't go as planned. Not so fast, Carillion whispered, and only after Kumara's heart was torn apart did that whisper echo against the walls. His weapon was in pieces, but it was not broken. The jagged fragments floated into the air, following his will, and they formed particles of light that stabbed Kumara from behind. It was all over. But Carillion, not one to let his guard down, kept going, mercilessly firing another beast roar at the limp Kumara to end it for good. And that's how Sir Carillion won. Sounds like it. And, given how much stronger Kumara's gotten, I can't believe she was beaten so easily. Well, that's how battle works. Good thing this wasn't a real fight, at least. Right. I think it's great experience for her, too. Seeing Carillion storm down my labyrinth was a humbling experience. I was so sure of myself, too. I wonder if us volunteering to host Sir Carillion was itself an overly arrogant move to make. We have much to teach him, and much to learn as well. Yeah, I'm sure. Some people say being a teacher is a good opportunity to discover what you're lacking. The idea being, I guess, that if you're asked something you don't know, you can't just talk your way out of it. You need to quickly investigate the answer, then make it your own. In this case, I feel like staging these real fights with Carillion is teaching us to be more careful in battle. Still, the same was true for Carillion. I think he's refining his battle style more and more with each fight. If Kumara had fought him before a Dalman, I bet we would have seen the opposite results. That was how wonderful Carillion's growth was. Well, at this rate, I bet Zijin had it rough, too, huh? I hated to even imagine Zijin losing, but after all this momentum. Oh, that wasn't a problem. Huh? They faced off, and Sir Carillion was the first to act, but the video came back on. A single instant was all it lasted. Before Carillion could even enter particle form, well, that's not the right way to put it. Zijin just smiled, like someone was showing a neat little illusion to him, and then Carillion's whole body was sliced up like confetti. It was that instant? What is Zijin, anyway? Honestly, I think it was a miracle that I beat him. I don't think I'd stand a chance now. Benimaru smirked. That might just be modesty, but if a sore loser like him is going that far, Zijin must truly be from another dimension. If he lost as well, we'd have to fully retool our approach to defense from the bottom up. Zijin never seems to get too conceited, no. This experience reminded us to keep our guards up, but it sure doesn't feel like he needs the lesson. I agree. He's beyond stoic that way. It was a complete, total victory, but he still wasn't satisfied with it. I remain a far cry from Sir Rimuru, he said. So was Zijin pursuing this Rimuru of his imagination? The thought made my eyes water. That was the end of Carillion's challenge. But what about Frey? Lady Frey defeated a Dalman as well. Rather handily, in fact. Really? That was unexpected. I thought a Dalman's team would win that one. Him alone, maybe Frey would pull it off, but 3-on-1? I really think a Dalman's team would have the advantage there. But when I brought up the video, it soon became clear why she won. It's a complete mismatch. It looks to be that, yes. Lady Frey's magic interference completely shut down a Dalman's magic. That threw their attack patterns off, and then Lady Frey dictated the pace of the battle. It cost him dearly. Benimaru was right. The area in a 50-yard radius around Frey became an anti-magic zone that blocked all magicule movement. It was a more powerful form of interference than anything the Charybdis could manage, strong enough to cancel out a Dalman's Necronomicon. Frey achieved divinity, too, didn't she? That's a property only attainable by spiritual life forms who shed their natural lifespan, so no wonder Frey could compete against an ultimate gift. In fact, there's a chance she earned an ultimate skill, too, isn't there? After this, Adalman switched his main weapon to Holy Cannon, that piece of holy magic, but it wasn't decisive. Frey's flight capabilities made it simple for her to dart around these bolts, and in the meantime, she zoomed right up to Venti the tank and grabbed on with her talons. Those talons of hers are a major threat. They disrupt the magicules within your body, so they're like a natural poison for monsters. Once she latches on, you're all but robbed of your skills and magic. I had no problem calling those talons as dangerous as a god-class weapon. Wow. If I didn't know, maybe I would have been in trouble, too. Ha ha ha. Oh, you'd be fine, wouldn't you? You could just use replication to escape. But Sir Carillion said he'd have no way out, and I'm not sure I would, either. I'd defeat her before she could latch on, but... Yes, I'm sure that's what Benimaru would do. But that was asking too much of Adalman's party. Venti, destroyed from the inside, was forced out of battle. Then Frey switched to a long-range approach. With Adalman unable to cast flight magic, all she had to do was fly up and rain down attacks from above. Alberto, irritated, leapt up and tried to swipe at Frey, but that just made him ripe for the picking. They called her the Sky Queen for a reason, and before long, Alberto was in pieces and scattered across the air. That just left Adalman, and by this point he had no chance. Faced with Frey's might, defeat was the only option for him. Then Lady Frey pressed on downward and went into battle with Kumara. And how'd that go? They were about equal in power, but Kumara didn't have divinity. And looking at the last battle, Frey was clearly battle-seasoned. She called herself among the weakest of the 10 great demon lords, but I think she was being too modest. She was a clever fighter, and Kumara was immature. I thought it'd turn into a fun fight, and that's exactly what it was. It was one for the record books. They fought for 3 days straight, both of them bringing out all their strength. I wish I could call it a draw, but Lady Frey was the victor. Ooh. Sounds like a great fight. I'll have to study the video later. Yes, I learned a lot from it myself. It's important to have the fortitude to never give up on victory, but in the end, a bit of ingenuity really can make the difference. If you're an even match with your opponent in strength, misleading them about your powers becomes so vital. Kumara lost, after all, because she misjudged how much force her opponent had left. Wow. Now I'm really looking forward to the video. It has 3 days worth of data, so I'll need to use hasten thought to speed it up a bit. And did Frey try her hand against Zijin next? If it was that even against Kumara, she was doomed against him. If Frey declined to fight Benimaru, I doubt she'd take on an even bigger menace. No, she fought Apito instead. Oh, her? Yes. I suppose it was a matter of pride, as a fellow winged creature. Huh. That kind of thing? It seemed logical. Maybe it prodded that competitive streak of hers. That turned into a pretty impressive fight, too, but Lady Frey won thanks to the difference in core strength. I'm sure she did. If it was that good a battle, Apito deserves the highest of praise. Either way, this made the extent of Frey's powers much clearer to me, and I could see what my allies needed to work on. I'm sure it was a shock for Adalman's team, getting a break from work only to have their asses kicked twice in a row. But let's just be glad this wasn't real combat and hope they capitalize on this experience. And maybe Carillion and Frey owed me a favor now, huh? I had Ramirez to thank for that, too, so I'd need to express my appreciation to all of them later. The latter in particular. I can't thank her enough. So what else did I need to tackle? Okay, I said to Benimaru. I'll leave Sare and Grigori in your hands, then. Roger that. As it stands, they might have a chance against Adalman's trio. I'm with you there. In fact, maybe Alberto could handle them himself. But don't keep Adalman from his work for too long. I had just sworn to myself to keep my guard up, so I won't be too shocked if my prediction turns out wrong. But Sare couldn't even beat old man Ghidorah, and that told me a Dalman's party would be a major challenge for him. In fact, my prediction wound up becoming 100% true a few days later. And with that proven, Sari and Grigori were assigned to train their hardest with Apito, as Adalman's crew had other work to do. After leaving those guys with Benimaru, my next destination was the Kingdom of Bloomond, where Mjolmal was waiting. We planned to meet there, then travel together to Inglesia. I was pretty used to Bloomond by now, after all the visits I made. I wouldn't be going into any urban areas, so there was no need to work my way through their barrier. Instead, I was headed for the outlying suburban areas, feeling every bit like a tourist. These areas have now become the center for a very large firm. World Central Station was under construction, attracting laborers from all the nearby countries, and our Four Nations Trade Alliance had just opened a new headquarters building in a cushy district not far away. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy about it. It was a high-rise by this world's standards, 10 stories and around 100 feet tall. The gigantic palace under construction in Millim's domain would dwarf it, but it was still a world-class piece of architecture by local standards, neatly designed, and using rare, valuable glass like it was going out of style. It was all magic glass, of course, so hurricanes, earthquakes, and magic attacks wouldn't put a scratch on it. A lot of my other personal preferences were incorporated in the building, too, so you could say I have a lot of emotional investment in it. We were meeting here, and we also had a party planned, sort of a grand opening event. I am the owner, technically, but I was attending this as a guest. So there I was, in front of the building. I wanted to take a tour of the place once construction was complete, but I'd been so damn busy lately, I just couldn't make it happen. Mjolmal thus had free reign over this building, including who got to work in it. My job isn't exactly easy, but I'm sure he's pretty frazzled by now, too. Without him, we never would have been able to make this happen. I knew Mjolmal was a talented man, but it's like he has a gift for conning people. He was the director of the FNTA, but there was another person leading operations within this HQ. Remarkably, Viard, who had recently earned a noble promotion to Viscount, was working for Mjolmal now, and I was told he's been appointed the head of this building. Having Viard on our side made me both happy and very relieved. I haven't forgotten how expertly he swindled me, so I look forward to him working some of that magic for my benefit. That, and I was told we've procured a few more key talents for this place, people I'd get introduced to at the party. Can't wait. CI and I were standing abreast, Ranga in my shadow like usual. We were in formal attire for this occasion, a grey 3-piece suit for me, a black 2-piece for CI. They were made of Helmoth silk, a name brand Tempestian export these days, and Shuna had tailored them just for us. You won't find made-to-order stuff like this in the stores, and I'd like to think that people who see us will pick up on the difference. The party wouldn't begin until the evening, so not many people were around. Despite that, I was still attracting looks from passers-by. My natural charisma at work, I guess. Wow, look how handsome that guy is. Are they brothers? He looks like someone bodyguarding for his little brother or something. Yeah, the smaller one's kinda cute, too. Wonder what he'll look like when he grows up. Isn't he so cool? We've had a lot of foreigners visit as of late, but you don't see many that look as suave as him. That wasn't exactly the reaction I expected. It sounds like they're a lot more interested in CI than my charisma. It made me realize how self-conscious I was being, which embarrassed me a bit. Okay, let's go in and say hello, I said, trying to hide the shame. So we went inside and up to the front desk. The first floor was large, like a hotel lobby, complete with a front desk and waiting area. I already knew the layout, so I didn't bother asking for a guide. Hey, is Molly around here? When I asked the woman at the front desk, this fancy-looking man in a sharp suit came out from behind a closed door, giving me a quizzical sneer as he chomped on his cigar. Can I ask who you are, sir? Oh, I'm Raimuru. Could you tell Molly that I'm here? He looks like a gentleman, but he's pretty arrogant, huh? I smiled back at him anyway. The front desk woman, upon hearing my name, hurriedly reached for a crystal ball, a magical item, meant to connect the user to whoever has the other half of the pair. It doesn't have much of a range, but it's really useful inside buildings like this. I watched on, satisfied to see the staff was working as trained, but suddenly that arrogant man stopped the receptionist. Mr. Cabana, this man is. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of this. No, sir, I mean. There are a lot of liars, you know. People who'll say anything to meet with some Jolmal. A bunch of fools are trying to crash our party tonight, too. It's tough being famous, you see. He doesn't really understand that, though, which is why talented staff like myself need to be here. Tough luck for you, huh? If I wasn't around, you might have actually been successful, too. Oh. Yeah, I guess. I wasn't sure how else to respond. The receptionist seemed to know my name, but this Cabana gentleman didn't seem aware of me at all. Maybe he was, but he failed to match the name with the face. It's not like he normally handled front desk duty, either, by the looks of things. I couldn't help but think that he was just trying to look good around this beautiful receptionist so he could make a move or two on her. I will teach this man a lesson, Sir Rimuru. C.I., quietly seating next to me, focused his eyes on Cabana. Wait. Molly's working hard to train his staff, okay? We have to expect a misunderstanding or two. We need to be nice here, you know? I'm sure Mjolmal really is busy, but it's a shame he couldn't be personally here to greet me. I wasn't a big fan of Cabana's attitude, but if people are dropping in without an appointment in search of jobs or whatever, it'd be natural to treat people like me this way. As I tried to assuage C.I., the receptionist raised her voice. Mr. Cabana. This one is the real thing. I'm sure of it. He looks exactly like the portrait on the wall in some Jolmal's office. Oh, he had a portrait. I noticed one inconspicuously hanging in his house when I visited, but he's still got that one, huh? And hanging it in public, too. Strange guy, but, yeah. Shizu, who gave me my looks, was a real beauty, after all. I understand if he's smitten, but I'm basically a grade school version of her, but come to think of it, I've been growing, haven't I? I was now a little bit under 5'3", which I suppose is average for a girl in high school. I didn't have a chest or anything, but maybe I'd look pretty good in a portrait. I'm too fidgety to sit for one, though, so I'd need to have Seal conjure something up in my place. Not that I have any interest in being a model anyway. As my mind kept wandering down this trivial side path, I heard Cabana's surprised voice. "WH what? This little brat, this child is Sir Rimuru himself?" "Yes, I'm positive. But that's just crazy. He's a demon lord. Why would the lord of such a huge domain be traveling around with a single bodyguard? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." He has a good point. I really need to follow more of the formalities when I'm traveling around. Shuna said as much when I headed to Dworgen. Here, I skipped most of them due to lack of time, but I knew how anxious that made her. Maybe I better shape up in the future to avoid things like this. It might be, sir, but it's the truth. I mean, would a demon lord just prance in here and say, "Hey, is Molly around?" Of course he wouldn't. Right? Cabana sounded like he was pleading for his life, tears in his eyes. If he admitted he was wrong, after all, it'd mean he tried to kick a demon lord out of the building. I'm sure he had a vested interest in denying everything. The gentleman mask was off, and now I was seeing the real him. I feel kinda like a bad guy. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm not out to sick my dogs on you or anything. You have a covert agent here, you could sick on him. Enough, C.I. But this isn't your fault, Cabana, so I'll put it behind me. Could you just pass me on to Molly, please? My proposal made Cabana's face light up. Are you sure? We'll all be a lot happier that way, won't we? Tears began to flow from his eyes. I'm not sure what kind of scenario he was picturing, but he beamed at me, saying stuff like "thank you very much. I'll never forget this favor." And so on. I felt a little weird about it, given how I was trying to conceal my own mistakes anyway. As Gabbana emoted his appreciation, the receptionist called in Mjolmal. She and Gabbana saw me off, heads bowed, as me and Mjolmal moved to his office. It was situated in a large room on the top floor, offering a great view and plenty of sunlight. I took in the sights as I sat down on a luxurious sofa, taking a drink of the juice provided. "Is anything the matter, Suraimaru?" Mjolmal asked. "Nope. Nothing." "Well, great, then. I was just worried that Bozo Gabbana did something rude to you." No, it's perfectly fine." After reassuring Mjolmal, I casually changed the subject. "But Molly, I see that you have a portrait of me in this office. What's up with that?" I asked the question calmly, my eyes focused on a certain point on the wall. Well, yes, about that. It would seem he obtained this on the black market, CI said. However, both its origin and the identity of the artist are unknown. Oh? There were pieces depicting you in slime form as well, Suraimaru, so I believe it is someone who knows you well, but even with our intelligence network, I have been unable to pin them down. A shrewd character, to be sure. Whoa, wait a second. Shrewd isn't the half of it. Am I in trouble? So not even your investigations went anywhere, CI? Unfortunately not. No way. As we are in a state of war, I assigned a low priority to this investigation. I therefore could not assign many personnel to the case, which is the likely culprit. Oh. That kind of reason? But I feel kind of violated, being a model for a portrait by someone I don't even know. Well, Mjolmal said, journalists around the world have seen you in person now, Suraimaru. I'm sure at least some of them have artistic talents. There's nothing that strange about it, is there? You think? If even CI's team was failing, that was cause for concern. But no point brooding over it. Okay, well, I'm confiscating this. Very well, wait, what? I attempted to persuade the shocked Mjolmal, although I had already decided on this in my mind. Why do you have to do something like hang a picture of me in public? I hereby forbid you from doing that. See, come on. This is tyranny. I don't think even the great tyrants of history would order something like that. You don't have to exaggerate. Why are you resisting it so much? I'll pay you for the portrait, okay? So let me just take this. I took the artwork off the wall. I mean, whoever painted this had beautified me so much that it hardly even resembled me any longer. To be frank, it looked way more like Shizu than me. That beauty, that fleeting feeling. An excellent representation of her. I was so excited about hanging this here, too. CI patted the wailing Mjolmal on the shoulder. Hair. Give it up. Have this instead. Huh? Is that? The moment the surprised Mjolmal and I saw the artwork in CI's hand, we both raised an eyebrow in confusion. It depicted a slime. Well, isn't that nice, Molly? Hopefully this'll be enough inspiration for you. No, I'm not sure this works, you could say. I'm sure it doesn't. I don't think seeing a picture of a slime would make for a very motivational poster. But why do you have something like that, CI? These were pieces we seized in the midst of our investigations. A few other examples have appeared in the market as well, and we've retrieved all of them. All just of me as a slime. Yes. What was that pause for? Well, one of them was taken from me by Diablo. What? That bastard. I resisted him with everything I could, but he overpowered me. I'm deeply sorry. Well, that's all right. I'll be sure to retrieve it from Diablo, then. That, and I'll tell him to stop getting in your hair. Diablo can be such a pain. He glorifies me way too much, and I know that my looks are derived from Shizu's, so it's not like I claim I'm ugly or something. But this is all the more reason why I can't allow him to own portraits of me painted by God knows who. CI smiled briskly, relieved by my promise. Mjolmal muttered something like what, so Sir CI gets to keep his art? But he should really stop worrying about that kind of thing. Well, why not? I asked. At least CI attracts normal women. You can bet they'll be safe with him. Mjolmal gave me a funny look and nodded. The subject was closed for now, but I'd need to thoroughly look into where this stuff came from. There wasn't much time left before evening, so we got down to business. I'm glad to see things have gone well so far, but what about our future plans? That's the question, isn't it? I'd like to receive an update from you, too. Well, should I begin, then? No, you see, we've received loads of questions about your plans from all kinds of people. For tonight, I'd like you to enjoy the party, and then tomorrow we'll hold a conference to go through them all. Well done, Molly. No stones left unturned with you. Wahaha. But of course. I feel like I've been repeating myself a lot lately, which I'm getting sick of, but we'll get a whole lot more done at once this way. Kudos to Mjolmal. So I had him report to me on his current dealings. All our plans were experiencing smooth sailing. We had gradually been consuming a number of underground criminal organizations, and by now, almost nobody openly defied Reg any longer. That's wonderful. It's scary how well that's going. Oh, it truly is. Sir Viard is one of the most talented people I've ever met. He's using methods I never would have conceived of in a million years to expand our power. Honestly, he's even better at this than I am. Well, don't feel bad about that, Molly. He got the best of me once, as I recall. I can't blame you for thinking you lose out to him. I hate to admit it, but he's just a monster, let me tell you. It's like he reads people's minds and manipulates them into doing whatever works out best for him. He might even be more qualified to direct the FNTA than me, you know? Well, who knows? He's clearly a talent, yes, but whether he's CEO material is another story. No, I don't think so. ? And I'm not just saying that 'cause we're friends, Molly. It's a boss's mission to reward the people under them for getting the job done. If a boss is too talented, they won't be able to accurately judge other people's achievements. I think I understand what you're getting at, Sir Rimuru, but... Mjolmal looked less than convinced, so I kept on talking. I could have just laughed this off, but better to address anxieties like this while they're still small. Well, everybody's different, right? So of course they're all gonna have different talents. And any boss is asked to assign their workers the tasks they're best suited for. But if you're too good at your work, you tend to just do it all yourself instead of relying on anyone else. Right. So if someone like that's at the top of the hierarchy, there's a pretty good chance they'll start thinking, like, I'm the best, I'm always correct. Autocratic is the word for it. They're talented, yeah, but many of them think in strict, polarized ways. If your staff gets the job done, that's a baseline. If they don't, they're worthless. Even if the failure's caused by having impossible quantities of work placed upon them, if the boss thinks he's right, he could pin all of the blame on the staff. And if that boss is the president of the company, that's the worst of all. People might be too afraid of being fired to point it out, and even if they aren't, no one might be listening anyway. Along those lines, I felt safe with Mjolmal. He can be pretty autocratic at times, but he's kind and broad-minded enough to see his staff's failures as his own. Viard, meanwhile, is the kind of boss who immediately lays off anyone he deems incompetent. Well, maybe that's going too far. I wouldn't call him cold-hearted, but he's the type who looks at nothing but numbers and gives the cold shoulder to personnel he deems redundant. Management like that can contribute to the growth of a firm, but that's not the kind of firm I'm aiming for. I want the people in my organization to feel joy from helping others out. The Four Nations Trade Alliance, as set up by us, didn't need to hurry growth. I didn't care if it took its time, I just want a firm where people trust in each other. Rapid growth can result in people dropping out, and if Viard were director, that's probably what would happen, wouldn't it? I explained all this carefully to Mjolmal. I see. That's how you think, Sir Rimuru? Well, it may all be baseless anxieties, of course. I'm not trying to say Viard's a bad person, either. I just think he's so talented that he puts efficiency ahead of everything else. Yes, I can't deny that. So my job's to manage things so it's easier for everybody to work under Sir Viard, then? Exactly. Glad we're on the same page there. The top person in a company shouldn't really be much more than decoration, but they can't be an empty shell, either. If we can all shoulder some of it until everyone's okay with their load, well, that's when things start to come together. This wasn't an absolute, of course. Everything's case by case in this business. But here, at least, I was certain that Njolmal was the best man to have on top. Besides, given that he's also the finance minister of Tempest, it's best that he doesn't try too hard as the FNTA director. Just keep an eye on things and send work over to those with the best talent for it. Besides, I think Viard's more suited for working under someone, not the other way around. So Njolmal had my seal of approval as director, but the man himself treated this with a jovial laugh. Wah ha ha. Ah, Sir Rimuru, you are such a modest leader. ? Oh. No, you idiot, I was talking about you, not me. He kept on laughing in my face. Once Njolmal was done briefing me, it was almost time for the party. We've invited nobility from many nations today, Sir Rimuru, so I'm sure you'll receive quite a bit of attention. It'll be such a large-scale event, I'm not sure we'll have much time to rest, but are you okay with that? Well, hopefully it won't just be me sitting there intimidating people. That was obviously a bad idea. But I didn't want to deal with a bunch of annoying hangers-on, either. I suppose I could solve this by just not attending, but everyone from Gazelle and Yom to King Durrama of Bloomond was on the invite list. If Njolmal is director of the FNTA, then I'm sort of like the firm's top benefactor. I can't just duck out because I don't want to be there. I could shoo them away, if you like. CI looked deadly serious. If I let him shoo them away, my instincts told me there'd be a bloodbath. No, I'll be okay. I'll just use my consummate communication skills to fend them off. Understood. I will keep a prudent distance in my bodyguard duties, then. Great. Thank you. Cool. That's a relief. There'd be nothing but A-listers at this event, so violence was out of the question. It'd still be that way even if they weren't A-listers, but if we triggered an international incident, it'd wind up involving a hell of a lot more people than me. I am here, too, my master. Fear not. Ranga poked his face out from my shadow to express himself. Perfect. I'm counting on you. Cute little guy. His antics drained all the nervousness from me as I began striding toward the party venue. The 9th floor, one below us, was wide open for the most part, designed to hold large meetings, activities that required many employees, and other such things. Right now, it was decorated for the party, complete with a few tables set up for buffet service. The 8th floor, by the way, was the employee dining hall, letting staffers look at the scenery while they enjoyed their meals. Coffee and tea were available at all times from there, so the staff could use it for business meetings and informal chats as well. All the food served at this party was, of course, prepared by the cooks plugging away in the kitchen. There was an assortment of pickles, soups, cured ham, premium steak, meatballs, roast beef slices, a selection of pasta, takoyaki, yakisoba, okonomiyaki, curry, meatloaf. Hang on. They didn't go as far as ramen, at least, but something about this menu didn't seem too appropriate for a business party. Hey, Molly? What is it? Isn't the choice of food a little odd? You think so? It's all the most popular items from Tempest's dining halls. Yeah, I know that, but... Huh? Well, let's just take a deep breath. Maybe the buffet menu could have used more of a red carpet touch, but there's no need to be bound by convention at all either, right? If we're here to try giving this world a breath of fresh air, maybe this menu was the right way to go. You know, the food we had on offer at the Founders Festival was pretty off the beaten path as well. If anything, I think some of our guests were expecting something like this. Oh yeah? Well, I guess we're good, then. Indeed. And if we're not, it's not like anyone's about to complain. I really like how Molly can keep such a casual what happens attitude with this. As I reflected on it, I realized that I was overthinking it anyway. I took another look around, wondering if there was anything else to bring up. Then my eyes settled on the man who had built this whole venue. It was Villard. Well, Your Majesty. Oh, but in my current position, I suppose you'd allow me to just call you Sir Rimuru? He greeted me with a friendly, beaming smile, and I couldn't help but nod back at him. Not that it's a problem or anything, but Villard's smile brought up some bad memories in me, so I couldn't help but keep my guard up around him. Now I really couldn't laugh at Njolmal, huh? Still, it's pretty darn extraordinary that the Kingdom of Bloomond would be so ready and willing to change the entire makeup of the nation like that. It would have been unthinkable back in my old life, even if absolute monarchy still existed on Earth. The idea of accomplishing that without any bloodshed was just a fantasy. But here's King Daram, doing just that. Better not mess with him, I guess. Using his own kingdom as his chips. Talk about a true gambler. I frankly don't have the cajones for that, so he gets nothing but respect from me. And Villard, being his former right-hand man, wasn't anyone to look down on, either. Well, everything looks thoroughly taken care of around here, Sir Villard. Having you in command is a tremendous relief. Keep supporting Njolmal for me, okay? But of course. And please, go ahead and call me just Villard. My father, the head of our family, might be a marquis, but he is planning to abandon the title without me inheriting it. Really? Whoa. I mean, yeah, Bloomond's moves would shake the nobility a lot in the future, but that only really applied to the lower classes of nobility. I'm not so sure about earls, but if you're a marquis or higher, the senior class, I think you'd be safe no matter how things work out. Yes, well, the time will come soon when we're called peers, not nobles, and then we'll likely lose our powers before long. I was the one who drafted that plan and presented it to King Daram, after all. It was you? I think I deserved praise for not saying that out loud. Ha ha ha. Well, those are the times we live in. The nobles may be the big movers and shakers of government for now, but once the people get up to speed on politics, you know they're not going to be happy with the status quo. It's important to gradually cede authority to them, so things won't get too hostile once that happens. Well, I'm sure, yes, but you can't just ask a bunch of guys who've never been near politics before to run a nation. Villard smiled at my concern. No. And that's why I want to become a commoner now. That way, I'll be in a position to accept the powers that are due to come to us. Oh. That kind of thing? I wouldn't call it cheating, but he was certainly fixing the match quite a bit. But, yeah, it sounded reasonable to me. I do think that strategy would keep the nobility's dissatisfaction to a minimum. But, man, how much foresight does this guy have, anyway? Because from what I've seen, he'd be up there with anyone I've met, supernatural or not. It's so amazing, I'd feel bad for leaving the Sir off his name. Njolmal shook his head, exasperated. He had a look of "I told you so, didn't I?" in his eyes, and I nodded my firm agreement with that. So the party began without a hitch. Njolmal, as director, gave the first speech, with King Daram adding a few words and proposing a toast. Then things got informal real fast. Informal, but not crass, that was important. There were royals here, after all, so that goes without saying. Of course, there are always some people who don't quite get the message, so as soon as we entered the party's chatter phase, I had a crowd forming around me. Guys. I know I've got brilliant communication skills, but even I have my limits. 1 or 2 people are fine, but when I'm surrounded by a dozen or so, that's trouble. Your Majesty. Please, you need to hear my story. My homeland would like to send a diplomat to Tempest. We would like to open trade with you. And we also have roads we would like to improve. All you little small fry nations, get out of my way. My nation is close to yours, and why are you acting so above us? What kind of diplomat doesn't even know how to stand in line? I am the Crown Prince, I'll have you know. If you want to talk about lines, I think my position enables me to go first. Like you've got any authority outside of your borders. Should I interpret that to mean you are openly hostile to my homeland? So, yeah, it was pretty raucous. A lot of it was stuff I had no reply to, but who gives a crap, and I was worried a fight might break out soon. All a big headache, really. I couldn't just ignore them all, but it was a huge hassle to deal with. Way beyond what I imagined anyway. I suppose this is just how important my position has become, but tonight, at least, I think I let my guard down. It's not like people swarm Gazelle like this. Even Yom presents himself as a stately figure, or not. That's Mornjaran smiling and keeping guard over him, isn't it? I envy him. Still, Yom's something of a sharp-eyed warrior, so maybe that's one reason why a snooty noble wouldn't want to get close to him. This must be why Elle from Thalion never shows up, right? Because it's always a huge uproar whenever she does. She told me she has people go through formal procedures and wait their turn to see her. Nobody without an appointment gets allowed in. I think I'll try something like that next time. Still, I had to do something about this situation. As I pondered over how to approach this, an unexpected person offered a helping hand. People, can we all relax a little, please? It was Cabana, the guy I ran into out front, talking to the crowd in his low, husky voice. His Majesty the Demon Lord Raimuru is head of the powerful Jura Tempest Federation and our nation's greatest supporter. I understand your earnest wishes, but please refrain from badgering him this evening. The point he was not so discreetly making was that tonight's a celebration of a new beginning, so let's discuss business some other time. He might have been crying in front of me earlier, but Gabana's a beacon of hope now. And he got a good reaction, too. Mr. Gabana. I heard you've become an executive in the Alliance. It's great to see you in good spirits. Why yes, my apologies for being in such a rush. It's a great fortune for me just to say hello to you tonight, so I'll leave you be for now. My pardons as well. I'll look forward to seeing you at a later date, once I file a more formal request. And those were the lucky ones. Most of the crowd quickly made good their escape instead of trying to say anything to me. I wouldn't exactly call that praiseworthy behavior, but I wasn't going to yell at people about trivial things. I only had so much time in the first place, so Rigard was in charge of who got to meet with me. I only extended the honor to a carefully selected few, and even now, I'm still in the process of sifting through all the requests. In the future, I'll follow Elmesia's example and be a bit more stringent. The fewer troublesome people in my life, the better. That, of course, meant that I may never see some of the people at this party again. For tonight, at least, I'm not going to mind a little crass behavior thrown in my direction. I gotta say, though, I'm seeing Cabana in a much better light now. He was standing a distance away, keeping an eye out for me, and thanks to him, I got to sit back and enjoy this party a little more. So, now that I had a little more freedom of movement, I looked around at the other guests. I met with Gazelle and Yom in advance, so no need to go out of my way to say hi. They'd be at tomorrow's conference, too, and if they had anything important to tell me, they could do it there. For tonight, all I had to do was hang out and act regal, so I was hoping to find someone interesting and get into some fun chit-chat. I looked around to see if anyone suitable was nearby, and there she was. A tremendous beauty, the kind who'd make anyone turn their head. Who is it? It's Hinata, of course. Hinata was wearing a dress with a wide-open back, jet black like a moonless night, and studded with jewels that looked like stars. But the dress wasn't all that noteworthy compared to her own sexiness. She kept her hair short, and between that and the dress, all her skin from the back of her neck down to her waist was on full display. She had tied a ribbon around her neck, but even this only accentuated her appeal. Her pale skin was dazzling against the dark hue of her dress. Just too dazzling, really. It was called a backless dress, apparently, and I don't know who invented it, but it's a truly wonderful design. Better save that to a file in my brain. Or, actually, maybe I could have record this as a video for me. There is no such function. No, there isn't there? I mean, you played back that high-res video of all the stuff in a labyrinth for me. As we are not inside the labyrinth, no recorded footage is accessible. You gotta be kidding me. I know you can do this. Like, you save the video from my battles against monsters, don't you? So I can study them later? Just do something like that here, is all I'm asking. Negative. No justification found. Hey, why is it talking like a robot all of a sudden? God damn it. I hate a partner who goes all unreliable right at the most critical moment. Left with no other choice, I devoted every slime cell in my body to the task as I smiled and spoke up. Wow, Hinata. You look beautiful tonight. That dress suits you so well. Hinata was having a sip of wine, but she put the glass on the table and turned back toward me. Then, gazing dubiously at me, she spoke. Huh? So you've learned how to flatter people now, eh? No, I mean it. I'm not good at any kind of flattery. That was half true. I was no good at giving compliments I didn't actually mean. Hinata snickered a bit instead of taking me to task for it, but I couldn't end the conversation here, so I plowed onward. But it's really bold, too, you know? Not to be rude, but I didn't think you'd be so aggressive with your evening wear. She glared at me. I swallowed the rest of my words. Oh, crap, I feel like my stock is plummeting with her. If you're aware that it's rude, it would have been the right move not to say it, wouldn't it? Sorry. You're absolutely right. Enough antagonizing her. An apology was the only way out. Hinata was reproachfully staring at me. I was panicking under her gaze. Then I smelled the aroma of wine. Hinata, breathing out a sigh, looked impossibly sexy to me. I mean, she looked great from the back, but the front view was definitely nosebleed worthy. Her dress went all the way up to her neck, but it was sleeveless, so there was nothing hiding her pale shoulders. And the most important part of all was the sides, down from the. What are you looking at? I'll kill you. Sorry. Bad move. I forgot I was in human form as I stared at her. No wonder she spotted it. Good thing this body of mine doesn't get nosebleeds. Luminous wouldn't shut up about having me wear this, she said. Dang. Nice one, Luminous. I'd love to send an attaboy out to her right now. I can picture her looking all smug about it, but either way, I have a ton of respect for her. I still tried to keep it cool as I did cartwheels for Luminous in my mind. Really? Well, I don't think she made a bad choice. I mean, seriously, you look beautiful tonight. I tried to appear as self-assured as possible. I meant every word of it, so I wasn't afraid of Hinata glaring back at me. Okay, that's a lie. Actually, I was all kinds of freaking out. Here we go again, but before Hinata could continue, I covered her lips with my own, or rather, it'd be perfect if I could actually do something like that, but a single misstep and it'd be a lot more than just sexual harassment. I'd be a sexual offender, more like, and besides, I was way too timid to have that kind of courage. So I went with words instead. No, really, I said, trying to sound serious. Then I noticed Hinata's cheeks turning red. This may work. Look at this. I'm doing better than ever before with. I believe she is just inebriated. Huh? I turned my attention toward the wine Hinata was drinking. Oh. Hey, doesn't this one have a high alcohol content? Is it? I'm enjoying it a lot. Hinata may not have much of a tolerance, huh? I sincerely doubt that, but if that's what Seal says. I was too focused on her looks tonight, but now I was curious about that sort of thing, too. So I held up 3 fingers. Hey, how many am I holding up? Are you making fun of me? No, nothing like that. Hinata sighed heavily as I hurriedly denied it. Look, you realize that I'm a saint, don't you? I've had the chance to travel with Chloe, and Luminous taught me a lot after I came back, too. I could easily detoxify this alcohol if I wanted. Seal tricked me. But if that was Hinata's claim, it made sense. After that, well, let's just say that I had a lot of trouble getting back on her good side. I never did get to ask why her cheeks turned red right then. The day after the party, our conference began after a lunch break. The attendee rundown went a bit like this. First, we had the 4 kings and 1 queen supporting the FNTA, me, Gazelle, Yom, and Mjuran, and King Daram. All of us in this group had already reached a consensus, so we were only here to put our stamp of approval on things. Next up was Mjolmal, who was nominated to direct the FNTA by all 4 of us, minus Mjuran, and Hinata, representing the Western Holy Church. The chairman of the Council of the West was making a personal appearance as well. His name was Lester, if I recall correctly, and he still had that long, bushy, Santa-like beard. Beyond that, there were around 30 more council members in the conference room, all carefully selected to represent all the assorted Western nations. Viard was also present as secretary, and Cian was serving as moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I'd like to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for taking time out of your busy schedules to gather here. We will begin this conference by explaining the crisis that will likely be occurring in the near future. Today's main goal was to go over the stuff Mjolmal asked me about yesterday, who this enemy was, exactly, what it was aiming for, the potential fallout of the ensuing war, and how we deal with it. We carefully screened the people joining this meeting to keep any fear from growing into outright panic. Kicking and screaming wasn't going to change this reality. Instead, we needed to be mindful about the best possible course of action available to us. As leaders, we couldn't be timid about that, as difficult as it can be. So that's why I wanted to lay everything out on the table first. I had given this spiel quite a few times before, so I appreciated Mjolmal's arranging all of this. In the meantime, Cian completed his overview of the situation. So you're saying the demon Lord Raimuru won the war against the Empire, said Chairman Lester, but now there's this new enemy, Michael? This muttered question ignited the other councillors. And this Michael is leading the angelic race, too? A Tema war, is it? I never thought that 500-year calamity would happen in my lifetime. Hearing their reaction, I raised my hand to speak up. We'd better address a misunderstanding or two sooner than later. Like Cian said, the goal of the enemy is to resurrect Veldenava. We can only speculate on how they plan to do that, and we have no evidence favoring one scenario or the other. Most importantly, we do not have a time frame for this, either. We believe they will make their move soon, but Michael is from a very long-lived species. It could be tomorrow, it could be a few years, or it could even be a few decades. That's the most troublesome part of it. We're clueless on the timing. If there's any movement, Dino would tell us in his daily morning report, and then we'd contact Obila via Milim to confirm the accuracy of his intel. But so far, Michael hadn't stirred at all. It was ominous, but there was nothing we could do about it, so we put that behind us for now. We had to keep on the alert for this enemy who could attack at any time, but until then, we were obligated to continue with our regular activities. Japan was pretty much the same way, I guess. A subduction zone earthquake was 60% likely to strike the country within 10 years, and that likelihood went up to 99% in 30 years, but that didn't stop us from living our lives. We just made sure we were prepared in advance, so we wouldn't be helpless when something happened. Beyond that, it was just a matter of cherishing our daily lives. Honestly, I was a lot more afraid of sudden volcanic eruptions than earthquakes, since there's pretty much no way to prepare for those. They say that if Mount Azo, the largest active volcano in Japan, were to have a full-on caldera eruption, it'd cause untold damage. They call it a supervolcano, after all, and apparently there'd be no escape no matter where in Japan you were. Maybe parts of Hokkaido up north would be unscathed, but either way, it'd be the end of the country. That's all a hypothetical, of course, but what if the government released a statement saying this was guaranteed to happen within the next year? I mean, I doubt it'd really happen, but even if I trusted it and wanted to flee somewhere, there wouldn't be any escape. No country is gonna be willing to accept 100 million or so refugees from Japan, and I doubt we'd arrange some elaborate system where we're all divided up among a bunch of other nations. Of course, if that prediction was 100% accurate, I'm sure the government will do what it can to help, but that depends on who's in power. Maybe they wouldn't accept it at all, and in the end, we'd have to rely on our own social connections to make our escape. I guess I always feel in my mind somewhere that if it happens, it happens. Better to live each day in the pursuit of happiness, rather than cower in fear every day. It's not like anywhere we escape to is guaranteed to be safe, either. They call them natural disasters because there's no point thinking about them all the time. There's an expression that goes along the lines of the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry, but I think that as a human being, you gotta just do the best you can with what you have. So we'll ensure that we are ready for Michael's attack at any time, but we also want people to keep enjoying their daily lives. That was why I wanted to reveal this truth only to the world's leadership. I hope this is understood as we ask you to join us in this preparation effort. Everyone was silent as I made my conclusion. There was audible groaning. But after half a minute or so of this, Hinata finally spoke up. As the representative of the Western Holy Church, we promise you our full support. I see, Lester said. That makes sense to me. So the projects being hastily developed and promoted in the Western nations were in preparation for this? Cian nodded. That is correct. It is all in accordance with Sir Raimuru's will. We were building tracks to run Magitrains on, as well as station buildings to serve them. These were now being expanded and redesigned for use as shelters for the local residents. They could serve as gyms or auditoriums or other things in regular times. I was going to ask our audience here to hold evacuation drills for these facilities once they were done, but before I could say anything, Lester spoke up. It certainly makes sense to me that advance preparation is very important. I, personally, do not have the authority to intervene in other countries' policies, but I can at least offer these evacuation drills as a proposal. Along those lines, I would be glad to offer my cooperation. Indeed. I may only be a councillor, but I am a marquis in my homeland. I will offer my advice to the king and get our training program underway. Yes, it's a perfectly valid idea. Allow me to join you in this. The councillors appeared to be on our side. This was going quicker than I expected, actually. We did pick this group carefully, after all, and none of them were foolish enough to grumble about this. Or, really, Njolmal said he kept the audience for this meeting small to prevent disorder like that. When it comes to decisions as monumental as these, a larger group would never reach a consensus, so the plan was to persuade a small group of power brokers first so they could win over the other councillors back home for us. That plan seemed to be going well, but it remains to be seen how the whole Council of the West will vote on the matter. Ho ho ho. Lord Raimuru seems to be concerned about the Council's ultimate decision, but I would advise him to rest assured about that. Nobody, after all, would ever dare stand up to Lady Testarossa. Ha ha ha. You are certainly correct. I have my political interests, yes, but I value my life quite a bit more. If this matter could threaten the very existence of our country. Well, if it's something as simple as evacuation drills, a single word from an authority like Lady Testarossa will bring everyone on the same page. Indeed. It's hardly something I am willing to openly fight against just to make my own opinion known. It'll pass unanimously, I'm sure. It benefits all of us equally. The councillor's reaction was quite a bit different from what Njolmal and I expected. Now I wasn't so sure I needed to be cautious and explain the whole situation to them. It'd seem I had a certain lack of awareness about this, an impressed Villard said. I have never met this Testarossa before. She sounds like a very remarkable figure. The councillors all looked at him warmly. Or was that envy in their eyes? Gentlemen, Cian said with a harumph, don't you think you're being a tad too careless? I will remind you that I am a faithful servant of Lady Testarossa, and I will be obliged to report to her about this meeting, lest anyone forget. The panic this generated among the councillors was nothing short of hilarious. No. You've got me wrong, I promise you. I did not mean any disrespect, no. I was merely praising her leadership. I was stating the truth, glory to Lady Testarossa. I'm not sure what that last guy was trying to say, but I could sense the emotion and desperation in his voice. I didn't expect Testarossa to be so dreaded like this. What a surprise. Cian, I said as he smiled to himself, try not to bully everyone too much, please. And I'm sure this simple exchange taught Villard just how mean Testarossa could be. I was thinking I should meet with this woman, he said, but I'm sure she is busy, so perhaps another time. So does that mean our meeting is over for today? I could almost see him backing away from the minefield. His danger detection skills was something I could learn from, actually. Once more, I was reminded of how talented Villard was. So the meeting was at a natural ending point, but I recalled that I had one more thing to say. Oh, right. So Testarossa sent me a message that Masayuki, the new emperor over in the east, wanted to build a peaceful relationship with the West. He sent a request to join the Council of the West, but what do you think? I had received this thought communication just before I came here. I was pretty casual with the moves, but most of the attendees froze, startled. What? All of them turned toward me, their eyes shrunk to little dots. The only unsurprised people in the hall were Gazelle, Yom, Njolmal, and Cian, all of whom I gave advance word to. I hadn't even told King Daram yet, so he was just as astonished as Villard. I almost never see Villard look shocked, so I got a bit of secret enjoyment out of that. Still, it seems my statement was more of a bombshell than I expected. I heard nothing about this. Well, no, I just told you, so. Were you aware, King Vazel? Yes, I had received word about it, but I don't know any details, and I certainly didn't know that talks had proceeded this far. Wait, I thought Gazelle knew all that stuff? No, we had discussions along the lines of wouldn't it be nice if this happened? But we had not gone over any dates or other specifics. Oh. Yeah, maybe not. I know the timing was a little tough, but I really should have contacted him via our cell phones to say something. I figured I'd clue him in today since we had this meeting and all, but I didn't quite make it to him beforehand, so this was the first notice for a lot of people. Did you not know either, Yom? Not a bit, no. So why weren't you surprised at all? Well, if I let every little thing the boss did surprise me, I'd have died of a heart attack long ago. I didn't much appreciate being openly dissed like this. Mjuran, listening from Yom's side, had a hand on her forehead, but she was staying quiet, which I'll take to mean she agreed with him. These stares from everyone started to feel excruciating. This is just stunning. Why do you always have to break this incredibly important news as if it were nothing? Hinata's gaze stung particularly hard. Well, I deeply apologize, madam, but, I don't know why I was calling her madam all of a sudden. Must be the nerves. But is this really my fault? I was so preoccupied with this war against Michael that I kind of assumed that the Eastern Empire would generally cooperate with us. Tempest is providing all kinds of support to them, too, so we can all be on the same page here. Wasn't it kind of a given that it'd work out like this? I didn't expect so much surprise. Because you don't seem too remorseful about it. Oof, wait a minute, Hinata. You know that Tempest and the Empire were at war, right? And we won, so now we're exercising our rights and building a peaceful relationship with them. And now that that's underway, it's a given they'll want to reconcile with the West, too, isn't it? I was laying on the excuses as thick as I could. But Hinata never stopped glaring at me. Which, well, I'm not in the wrong or anything, but not telling anyone might have been a bad mistake. It's not like I had no way to communicate with them all, and being busy wasn't much of an excuse. Maybe this was my fault as well. I was about to say sorry, but then Villard nodded deeply and lent a hand. You're absolutely right. This is not Saraimaru's fault, but rather ours, for failing to ask him to take such measures. Wow. You really get me, Viyard. What a smart guy. I couldn't ask for a more reliable ally here. He and Hinata glared at each other. The latter broke first. Well, yes, I suppose. Think about it a little, and it's clear Rimuru would have done what he thought was best. But as someone living in the West, it's pretty hard to believe that the Empire, our enemy since prehistoric times, would take a step like this. We had so many preconceptions about our relationship with them that, well, we never saw this coming. She sounded frustrated about it. And I get it, for sure. This great power, hostile against you for so long, suddenly asking for a peace deal. It's something anyone should be skeptical about at first, but the fact that I, the winner of our war, was giving the news was proving to be quite persuasive. If all we're trying to do is build a cooperative relationship, that wouldn't be any major risk to take. And what would be more foolish than humans squabbling with each other when a war threatening their survival could break out? Lord Rimuru, if I could ask you. Yes? I turned toward Lester, the chairman. I'd like to know where these potential talks with the Empire might be taking place. Also, you called the Emperor Masayoki just now, but are you referring to Lightspeed Masayoki? The concept clearly excited him. The second question caused more of a stir than the first, making me realize that I perhaps didn't explain myself well enough. Well, the meeting will be held in the Kingdom of Inglesia. They would like to hold it quite soon if possible, so they might be able to attend the next regular council meeting. And to answer your second question, yes, Chairman, you are correct. Masayoki, the hero and also my personal friend, was recently crowned emperor. The moment I said it, the conference hall erupted in applause. Brilliant. I'd expect nothing less of Sir Masayoki. Such wonderful news. Now we're sure to have averted a war. I have no idea how such a thing happened, but with Sir Masayoki, anything truly is possible. Exactly. Even that evil empire was no threat to the hero. So, yeah, pretty big deal. I had heard reports that a new emperor was crowned, but I had no idea it was the Sir Masayoki. Chairman Lester was almost in tears as he spoke. To be honest, I didn't expect this reaction. Now I was wondering if I had done something bad to Masayoki, actually. I mean, this unassuming teen coming to grips with his abilities and ultimately overthrowing the malicious empire. Don't tell me they'll make a sci-fi movie trilogy about him next. I mean, in what universe can a single person take down an entire country? The fact that these people believe all that really happened shows just how much faith they must have in Masayoki. But what can I do? It's all true, so. Well, yeah. I don't know all the details myself, so you'll have to ask him when you get the chance. I tried to keep it casual as I